What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another live interview here on the Joe Everest Defense Expert channel. Today, we've got Tony Thornton, who's the Executive Director of the American Fence Association. Tony, welcome.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Of course. I appreciate your time. I know a guy like you always has about 100 irons in the fire.
Well, if it comes to talking fence, I'm all in.
Well, Tony, why don't you tell us a little bit? What is the executive director of the American Fence Association?
I tell everybody I'm just Tony. I'm a fence guy. You can put any title you want to on an individual, but when it comes right down to it, I'm just a fence guy.
Sure.
As I've told you, Joe, my story. I was cutting grass one day, and 15 years of age, and 2 houses down the street, Mr. Jerry Jeffcoat Fence Company, pulled up, and he said, "Hey, I done talked to your dad. Get in the truck. We're going to build a fence today." And that's how it happened. I dug my first hole that day, became a PhD, as we all call ourselves. And it's just been part of my life from then on. And it's been a good run. Sure has.
Well, I appreciate you sharing the story because I think there's a lot of guys and gals out there with similar stories. Mine is in the first day of summer in middle school. My dad wakes me up and says, "Hey, guess what? We're going to go build some fence today." Well, I was going to go play with my friends. And he said, "Oh, don't worry. Your friends will be here after work. I promise."
There you go. There you go. Yeah, it's funny how we all get introduced to it, but it's truly been a blessing to me and my family.
Absolutely.
And part of it from owning my own company, working for a company, owning my own company, distribution and wholesale, and also on the manufacturing side before I became executive director some 7 years ago. So again, kind of bringing a little piece of every part of that into the industry, office here, it's been a huge asset to our organization.
Absolutely. I can see that. I mean, you having experience really in each and every phase of the supply line and of the actual installation side of the fence is you could probably have a well-rounded conversation with almost anyone in the industry.
I try to. that's what I tell everybody. I'm a PR guy. That's what I do. I try to promote our organization and what we're trying to do for the industry.
Well, that's the thing is I think PR is probably accurate, but really, Tony, I mean, you do so much more than PR though for the AFA. I mean, you personally do quite a lot of education, helping guys out. You did a phenomenal job during the first weeks and months of the pandemic, really trying to help guys navigate that. What that looks like for a fence contractor or a fence installer, or kind of wherever they fit in the industry. Helping them navigate through that. So, I mean, PR is right, but I think you hold a much bigger role there too. You really
I appreciate those kind of comments, but again, coming from the contractor perspective, when this COVID and this pandemic occurred, most of us fence industry professionals, we had just gotten back from Fence Tech, so we made it right under the radar. I mean, we had a very successful show in Salt Lake City. We come home for a week, we kind of caught our breath, and then we came back to work. And then the next week, that's when pretty much the country shut down. So I asked myself, as a past contractor, what would I be doing? What panic mode would I be in right now? And how do I need to move forward? And that's how we evolved into the videos and trying to keep our fence industry professionals up to date on what to expect and how to navigate that whole piece. Again, we didn't just focus on the AFA members. We focused on the fencing industry. And I think that we've got a lot of good positive feedback from that because, we are the industry voice. And if we're not here to help everybody, then we're not going to be selfish. So
right.
I appreciate those kind of words on those videos. We did get a lot of very positive feedback from that.
Well, and I think that's worth noting, Tony, that content you were putting out was available for everyone, members or not, because, as an industry, we try to take care of everyone. Right. It is whether they're members or not. They're fence professionals first.
Exactly.
And that was a really neat thing to see. Really neat thing to see you do is, and not every industry is a little bit different, but you might see, other industry groups, not necessarily in ours, but to say, well, to gain access to this, late breaking news, be sure to join up and you'll find it in our members portal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really proud of that, Tony, to see you guys do that.
The results showed positive too. During that pandemic, those couple of months that we were doing those videos, our membership actually grew over 100 new members.
Oh, wow.
So, we call it the advocacy piece of reaching out to our industry professionals, letting them know what to expect. And I think we showed what AFA, was about, sure. What this industry could expect from us. And those individuals said, wow, I need to be a part of that. So we saw a good growth of number new members through that pandemic time. And they're still members today, and we continue to grow. So that was a learning experience for us, actually.
Sure. Well, good on you guys for doing that, Tony.
Thank you.
I'm serious. It was really neat to see. Let's talk about, so that might have been a lot of folks' first introduction to the AFA is that kind of initial outreach. So for a new member, what can a new member expect to see ongoing from the AFA? How does the AFA interwork with their business?
Well, I get that question all the time, and it all boils down to, a return on investment, ROI. And we talk about, and I tell everybody, if you're not going to get engaged, don't spend your money, don't become a member, because you're not going to get anything out of it. I tell everyone that if you're going to invest, dive all the way in, get on a committee, get engaged with a program, something that we've got going, something that you are passionate about, that will just drive us to higher, standards and higher levels of professionalism in our industry. We're very fortunate that our board of directors has chosen that a first year member can join at 50% off that first year. And our goal is to make sure that we do the work, support the member, and they won't have a question as to whether or not they want to join the second year or third year or in the future. And, we've been very fortunate. I've even gone as far as personally telling somebody that, if you pay your dues, you get engaged, and you don't get a return on your investment, I personally, Tony Thornton, will write you a check for your dues, because that's how adamant and how I think that we will be able to prove to them that we're here and we're going to be here. But a new member gets a member savings program is one of the biggest things. And of course, every fence contractor deals with a comprehensive insurance issue. And we've got members that are saving tremendous money on insurance savings through the comprehensive package, Wyatt and Andy Sturgio. We have 30 other programs that offer discounted benefits, uniforms, office supplies, you name it. There's all kind of collections, payroll processing, you name it. A lot of them may already be engaged, but yet if they sign up through AFA, they may pick up another 10 or 15%, savings on top of that. All of our new members, all members get a discount to Fence Tech, AFA University, and all the other opportunities. But the one thing that I tell everybody about this industry is I wished I could bottle networking.
Yes, yeah.
Think of it, Joe. You and I have had conversations, and we've talked about fence projects, and I talked to 100 plus members, over a couple of months, and they all share the same issues and the same problems. It's not any magic rocket science thing out there. But the networking, in my opinion, is something that if I could bottle and sell, we'd have more members than we could possibly put on paper. But you got to get engaged to get to that networking opportunity and learn from others, being willing to share. I think that's a very important piece of the puzzle is share your experiences. And I appreciate you and others out there that are doing these type of videos and these type of contents, because if we share, we're going to build a better profession.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You and I had kind of a brief chat before we started recording, and that's one of my main passions with this channel is if we can help guys and gals out there navigate some of the missteps we've made, then put them an extra 2 or 3 steps ahead. Yep. I'm fulfilled. Like that absolutely fulfills me, and I see you guys doing that on such a larger scale. But you're right. I want to speak to your point about you get in what you get out of it, what you put into it. From personal experience, we were members of AFA for quite a while, but we weren't active members. We didn't really attend Fence Tech that often, and we didn't go to chapter meetings. And I'd ask my dad, and when I was young, I was like, "What is this AFA? Like, why are we a part of it?" And like, well, it's just it's an industry organization. It's important to belong to the industry organization. It's like, okay, but why? He's like, well, it's because that's what we've always done, and that was kind of our limited experience until I started going to some of the chapter meetings, and I started going to Fence Tech and interfacing with other AFA members there, and of course getting into Facebook groups and chatting with guys there.
Absolutely.
And my return skyrocketed, both personally and professionally. And that, like you said, the member savings programs alone, depending on how you use and what you use inside that program, you could save your annual dues in that program alone.
Easy.
And then the rest of it's cake.
Yeah.
But you're right in that the networking, I value the networking really highly, especially our local meetings, the regional club meetings, that sort of thing. We had one, oh gosh, it was maybe a month and a half ago. or the Midwest chapter meeting. And I got to meet guys that I'd only interfaced with on Facebook or through text and phone calls and that sort of thing. And it brings up just a whole nother like real level to the relationship and the interaction to be able to sit for a couple nights, around a fire and just chat about fence stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're right in that we all face similar dilemmas, and I see that, and I'm sure you see it so much more in that everyone thinks that their dilemmas are individual to them. Like they're specific, like, oh, you guys got it so easy. I've got rocks here. I dig in rocks. And then you watch guys pour in. They're like, oh, you think you've got rocks? You should see my rocks. And,
that's right.
And that's the thing. Or, I've got, picky customers or something, everyone has that thing. They're like, oh, if you think you've got it bad, listen to this thing I deal with. And then 10 guys step up and go, oh, I've got that worse. And let me tell you about it.
Right. And they tell you how to solve it.
That's it. That's absolutely it. Is here's how I solve for that problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually applicable to everyone.
Absolutely.
But it's incredible to be able to network. So that would be kind of my piece of advice is for members that aren't active in their, in the regional chapters, absolutely get involved. I mean, it is so worthwhile, whether it's, and you could just do chapter meetings. Now, I mean, there's other, opportunities, service projects and that sort of thing that are absolutely personally very fulfilling. But if nothing else, attend some chapter meetings. Right now, most of them are virtual. We've got one tonight that's a virtual, so it's even easier to go to.
Due to this pandemic, it's really threw a monkey wrench into our face to face. As most everyone knows, we had to cancel Afa University as we know it here in Arlington. The first week of November, where we bring close to 150 people in, and we teach the fence installation school, the operator installer school, the design school. Sales training. I mean, we've got 4 or 5 different schools going on concurrently, and unfortunately, we had to cancel. But we had to do what we had to do to keep people safe. The venue couldn't host us, and what our board of directors has decided is in 2021, and hopefully and pray that these numbers continue to tick down. We're going to do a tremendous amount of what we call on the road training in 2021, where we're going to be traveling to Northern Ohio. Waverly, Nebraska, down into Florida. We're going to be teaching some of these schools on the road, which will allow what I always call, the locals to come close and save a lot of money. So we feel like we got a good plan put together. We had to pivot from what we normally do, but that's the new term around here is the pivot. And, we just had to look at things a little bit different, but we're still going to be bringing and delivering a lot of content, a lot of support and education and certifications to our industry here, in 2021.
Yeah, that was one thing I was really excited because I started hearing whisperings about the on the road training like in February, maybe early March. And actually there's a survey that was sent out that said, hey, if we bring this to your area, would you be willing to go? And I was like, I couldn't type yes enough. Like, yeah, I will be there. Please do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then the world changed.
Years ago, Joe, our focus was, getting people to come to Fence Tech, getting people to come to Afa University. And my attitude totally shifted in the fact that we've got to take Afa to our members and quit relying on them to show up. That's another benefit that this association offers is we're trying to bring it to you instead of expecting you to always come to us. So that's that handshake, between members and even non-members back to this association where we're going to be bringing a lot of that content on the road. I'm going to put a lot of miles on an F-250 next year. I promise you that.
Well, I mean, I look forward to it. I really do because we're in Missouri, so we're right smack in the Midwest, and it might not be as affordable to take a crew, over to there. But if it comes nearby, well, that's a lot more feasible. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's our goal. That's our goal.
Very good. Well, Tony, let's do this. Let's say hi to a few people. We've got some folks here. I see some comments rolling through. And then, guys, just to give you guys that are watching us live a roadmap, we're going to talk. So we talked a little bit about the AFA. Next, we're going to talk about kind of the AFA specifically for contractors as a new contractor, and not necessarily just AFA, how AFA can benefit, but just new contractors in general. And then we're going to talk about Fence Tech. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm excited for that part of this conversation. We're going to talk about AFA for homeowners. So those of you that are watching that aren't a fencing professional, but you're interested in fencing and having a fence built, that sort of thing. We're going to talk about why the AFA is important to you and some questions you should ask. And then we'll probably wrap it up with some more questions. But as for now, I'm going to go through, and if you guys do have questions, drop them in real quick. We're going to do a quick Q&A with you guys, and then we'll probably wrap up with a Q&A. I think that sounds about right. Let's start off with, we had someone that was first. What is up, Keon? Jeremy, how do you think that's pronounced? I'm probably butchering it. Keon? Tony, what do you think? Is it Keon, maybe?
Hey, I'm a country boy. I'm gonna call it Keon.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you for being first. All right. Let's see. So Fred's got a question for the channel. A good way to send pictures of your fence to see if I can make it look better. Let's do this. So we've got a Facebook page for Joe Everest, the fence expert. You can post a picture on there. We can start a discussion, anything like that. Picture or video. Videos are usually a little bit better. Let's just get a little bit better idea of what you have going on. But go over to Facebook and search Joe Everest, the fence expert. You'll find my page, and then post it up in there. We'd sure be glad to see it, Fred, and give you some ideas and tips. Oh, look who's with us. Roger Bencourt. Welcome, sir. So Tony, Roger's been with us for quite a while here on the channel, and he's always really good about bringing up great questions in the comments and participating in these lives with us. So, Roger, I appreciate you having you with us. Now, these are some names. Maybe, Tony, you might know these gentlemen, Conor Sisson and Chris Farabin, maybe? Am I way off?
Stories on Chris Farabin. Chris and I go back to Mississippi days.
Okay.
Appreciate him being here on the channel today.
Oh, that's awesome. Welcome, guys. Hello from Tampa. I love that. Yeah, so Connor, I agree. Master Halco is a really big part of the AFA. You know, there's several industry leading suppliers that are involved in the AFA pretty heavily. Master Halco is one. Ameristar comes to mind as well. And I think that speaks to the organization that not only are they here to try to help, you know, the contractors, the homeowners, but also really all aspects of the industry. Tony, who am I missing? So I know I'm sure I'm missing several. Master Halco, Ameristar. Who else is really involved?
You know, I assure you, I could pick up the phone today and ask any supplier or wholesaler in our industry to say, hey, I need, or we need, and they'll come through. I mean, you know, the list is endless. I mean, I can think about a list of 275 plus exhibitors that go to Fence Tech every year. And it's the wholesale suppliers for fence, it's the distributors for gate automation, you know, you name it, niche tools, you know, our good friends down at Little Beaver. I mean, you know, those guys come through for us at Afa University every year. Of course, you know, Master Halco has been a huge sponsor, Fortress, Ameristar, and I'm going to forget a bunch because I hadn't got my notes in front of me.
Sorry, I put you on the spot. Yeah, you're right. There's so many of them out there.
I'm telling you, I mean, honestly, they want to get involved because they realize, you know, what AFA is all about, and they want to be part of, you know, the bigger picture. And they promote all the time the professionalism aspect of what we're trying to accomplish through the training and the education piece. So we appreciate each and every one of them.
Absolutely. Well, Rachel's on with us, and she's right. The Midwest chapter has a meeting tonight, 7 to 8 virtually. I got my emails this morning, so I'm all set up and ready to go.
Rachel's not gonna let anybody not know something's happening.
No, you will know. You will absolutely know exactly what's going on in the Midwest chapter. She is on the ball, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I'm sure everyone's kind of this way, but sometimes I get tunnel vision where I'm just focused on whatever I'm on, and I need somebody to kind of take my attention back. Said, "Hey, you forgot about this. You need to be on this call tonight." Oh yeah, that's right. All right. Oh, okay. So Keith's got like more of a homeowner type question for us. And this actually comes up quite a lot. So Tony, I'll let you answer it. So he's asking, when a fence is installed, is it typical that the neighbor gets the good looking side or the finished side?
Oh, you're going to make the humorous side of me come out here. You know, what kind of relationship do you have with your neighbor?
Yeah.
Now, to be quite honest with you, a lot of your HOAs are going to dictate which side is going to be the finished product. Okay. For instance, my neighborhood where I live here in McKinney, Texas, requires that the finished side be to the outside of your yard.
Yep.
So if your home is built first and your neighbor comes in second, they're always going to get the finished side.
Yep.
Right, the opposite. So it really depends on your HOA. And it also depends in some cities what the ordinances and licensing requirements are. But for the most part, I've always stated, I've been in this stuff since I was 15. Have a good understanding with your neighbor as to, I'm paying for it. Do you want to go half and half? Is a shadow box type, fence more appropriate, double-sided fence where both of us have a finished product? And if they're willing to share, then that cuts the cost in half. But there's no guideline or standard that says that you have to give the finished product to your neighbor. So you get a good understanding up front, keeps from having a bad understanding later. You got to look at all those aspects to try to make that decision.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. And it's funny. So it kind of varies regionally to what people expect. Because in our area, just like as you said, Tony, kind of our standard is the finished side faces out. It's a nice finished look. But when I talk about that in some of my videos, some of the comments are very adamant that that's not the right way to do it. That the finished side should face in towards the customer, and by putting the finished side out, you're doing disservice to your customer. So I'll add this caveat that it probably varies regionally too.
And our fence industry professionals are not very opinionated at all. So, we really don't know what they think. That's the fun part about it is getting those different opinions throughout the country. You're right. It's regionally and territorially, different. And I mean, you take, for instance, a 2-acre, acre lot, you've got a home there, and you're only going to put a small fence up around your backyard area, to close in your pool or whatever. I'm going to put the aesthetics to my pool. I'm not going to turn the aesthetics to my neighbor, which is, several hundred yards away.
Sure.
So again, HOA requirements, licensing and ordinance requirements, and then a good understanding with your neighbors as to what expectations, where you don't have any disagreements. That's my game.
I like it, and really in that order.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right. So David's got a question. So he started a new company. The hardest part's finding a distributor. They'll sell small volume materials. And I'll give my experience, Tony, and you probably know better than I do. But in my experience, it probably varies distributor to distributor. And it probably varies regionally too.
Yes.
In our area, so we're about 3 hours away from pretty much any distributor, whether it's Master, Stevens, any Eagle, Fence Brokers, any of them. But they're still willing. A lot of them still make weekly trips into our area. So if you have a distributor that already has a route set up, typically they'll sell smaller quantities, but it probably just takes finding that distributor that has that route set up.
That's so true, Joe. And I would ask David if at his convenience to give me a call at AFA. We can give him my cell number toward the end of the presentation today. But a lot of, even when I started as early in my industry I partnered with others. So, if he started a new company and there's 2 or 3 other companies that are fairly new and buying small quantity, they need to partner together to place a larger order. And that allows them to leverage, that order with the distributor. And then they may even be able to get it delivered at that level as well. So there's a lot of different ways that they could go about it. I'd love to talk to David and give him some direction. First of all, where are you located? What's your closest distributor? Are there multiple distributors? And then I can put you in touch with the right people. And of course, Joe has some contacts as well if it's in his market. So please don't hesitate reaching out to us, member or non-member. We're going to be here to help you.
Yeah, you bet. And so it looks like David saw that message. And so, David, stick around to the end of the broadcast, and we'll go through all the contact information. If for whatever reason you can't stick around to the end of the broadcast, it's going to be a lengthy one. This will also be uploaded it'll be recorded and uploaded later on today. So I understand how, I get the fence life. Not everyone can watch the whole thing. So stay tuned this afternoon, and we'll have Tony's details at the very end of the video for you. All right. So Rachel says you're right. She's right on top of everything. All right. So Jay Bird Schmidt says the folks here at Rock and Z Fencing are excited about the steps the AFA has taken to bring the ag fencing sector more into the fold. I'm glad he brought this up. I really am, because I saw your interview with the guys there at the Fall Fencing Forum.
Yes.
How was that? How was that Fall Fencing Forum?
It was unbelievable. I had planned to be there last year, and unfortunately, plans changed. I made every effort to make it there this year. That was actually my first event since we left Fence Tech to be out in the pandemic, so to speak.
Okay, yeah.
But I tell you, the ag industry folks, we've wrapped our arms around them, and they have us, because collectively we want to try to help the ag industry better, build the standards based on what needs there are now versus the old, because those standards hadn't been updated in a long time. Sure. But when we first started talking with the ag industry, there was a lot of hesitation, but a handful got on board, including Jay Bird here, and we had conversations. We talked about what we could do for each other, and then from there it just evolved into a great relationship. That Fall Fence Forum, I'd recommend anybody and everybody to try to make it out to that forum next year, because it really teaches you the proper techniques for ag fencing, introduces you to new techniques on installation, which will make your company more efficient and hopefully put more money in your pocket, because that's what we're in it for, right?
Yeah, well, absolutely. We should be. We absolutely should be. And I found out about it too late this year. I'd heard about it last year, and it was kind of like, well, we don't do agricultural fence, so it's probably not for me. And then I watched some of the YouTube videos this year, like right when the event was going on. Because I saw Sean, Mr. Fence, was doing chain link. So it wasn't just agricultural. You guys also got into a little bit of residential too.
Well, that was a nice thing. Luke Gibson, who sponsors this with the ag group, he said, hey, man, we're always looking to diversify. And we get the questions from time to time, hey, can you put this chain link fence up? What do you do with wood? So Sean and his team came in. Mark Olson taught a chain link commercial 6+3. And then Sean did some wood and some vinyl. Texarkana Fence helped lay that program out as well. So we had some representatives from AFA just kind of show the diversification for the ag industry and what they could do. And I think that a lot of people learned from that. And we're always available to help in any way we can, to take them to the next level.
Yeah, I'll say this. After seeing the videos, I'm excited to go next year. Like, it's already on my calendar. I'm going. I can't wait to see that. And I think, Tony, one thing's important to mention here is it's the American Fencing Association, right? So it's not the American Residential Fencing and American Commercial Fencing. If it's fencing, you guys are involved in it.
Absolutely. We break down what we call disciplines. If you want to call it that way, you've got wood, chain link, ornamental, PVC, agricultural. Then I'm going to add a 6 in there, which is our gate operator and access control industry.
Yep.
That's our segment. That's our wheelhouse. That's where the American Fence Association is, and that's what we want to try to support and educate and certify. And as long as we're doing our job on those pieces, then it's going to protect the consumer, to have a good product and have a good contractor out there.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't. Let's skip through a few of these and kind of get on with the interview here. Ohio's okay with whatever side you like, except for side facing the street. It has to be outward. That makes sense. Good to know in Ohio. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Jaber says the Fall Fence Forum was a great time. Thanks. And he thanks Tony for coming out.
Enjoyed it.
All right. One last one. As a homeowner, I was looking at going with Postmaster to do a 7.5 foot tall fence. Can someone explain why they recommend putting posts every 4 feet when you go over a 6 foot tall fence? Matthew, my understanding is it's about structural and in the wind load, the weight load that post is taking. There's a warranty involved with the post, right? So there's a wind load rating that they assign to the post. So if you go over 6 foot, and honestly, if you go over 6 foot, they're probably assuming you're going straight to an 8 foot fence. And then, so they've probably done their wind load calculations and have figured out that their posts are best at 4 foot spacing rather than the 8 foot normal spacing for anything over 6 foot. That would be my thought. Tony, what do you think?
No, you're spot on. I think it's more of a wind load issue where, the Postmaster product knows what those wind loads are going to support. Another thing that we need to bring into the picture is, what is the ASTM standard, whether it's a Postmaster, a round post, a square post, or a wood square post, what's the diameter, what's the depth? You could put, a post every 4 foot, but if you only dig it a foot deep, you're not gonna hold up much structure.
Yeah.
So let's understand what those ASTM standards are. We have the ASTM Bible, is what I call it, that guides our fence industry professionals on what they should be doing and how to do it, and that results in a good end result for the consumer. So, please talk with a local contractor on what those standards are, and make sure that you follow those protocols as well.
Yeah, in my experience, it has been also that Master Halco is pretty good to talk to.
Oh, absolutely.
If you picked up the phone and you reached out, you could reach out to your local distributor, Master Halco, your local yard, or even their national offices. I don't know that I've talked to anyone inside Master Halco that just didn't have the time to talk to me. They all seem to be very good about answering my questions, no matter how silly they are. I come up with some questions that seem to be pretty silly, but they are great. So, all right. So I said last one. These two are kind of the same. We're going to talk about these things here in a minute. So, what steps do you take to begin obtaining jobs from the commercial chain link sector? So, and this is actually exactly, we're getting ready to transition right into contractor specific questions. Bo's got one in here. Why do you think every large fence company always ends up being suppliers of materials and installation companies? In Colorado, it seems that all successful companies end up being suppliers. Bo, in my perspective, it's to the question that we saw, a few questions up, in that but several distributors, if they're not local to the contractor, require minimum orders to send a truck, or the delivery fee is a little bit higher. I know us as a fence company, so we're located in Southwest Missouri. We are also a supplier. We'll sell fence materials out of our lot. I mean, I have them. Why not offer them for retail sale? I think a lot of companies kind of transition that way because they're trying to help out their fellow fencers, right? They're trying to make those materials available that, if a guy needs 5 tension bands to round up a project because he's shorted or whatever the reason, he doesn't have time to wait for a truck. But if say it's a 3-inch tension band, it's a commercial project. Well, you're not going to find those at a Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards typically. Now you might, store to store, who knows? But you would probably then turn to a fence company who has them, we stock them by the bag. I think that would be my thought on it. Tony, what do you think? Why do a lot of larger fence companies turn to suppliers?
I think it's one thing is they're leveraging their buying power, from a supplier. So, Tony Thornton's Fence and Wholesale, I'm buying truckloads of fittings or truckloads of material. I also need to turn that inventory over. And let's face the facts that not every fence contractor will be able to get a credit line with a large wholesaler. Okay. I mean, I fought that battle when I first started my company years and years ago. So I had to go regionally and locally, and they worked with me. So there are some fence companies, that are good professional installers out there that only work a couple of days a week. We take some of our firefighter and our police officer, folks that do a great job. They're insured, they're quality work, but yet they don't want to have to set up an account with a large wholesaler, so they buy from a local wholesale distributor type organization.
Sure.
So I think that just kind of is a combination of what's going on. And it also is regionally affected. I mean, I think about where I'm from in Mississippi, really there's only the big wholesalers, and you don't have a fence company that's, selling as well. Again, I think it's regionally and territorially will be, people need to consider that.
Yeah. And, Bo, a lot of these fence companies, they have the laydown area. They've got the yard that can accommodate a truckload of wire that comes in. Yep. Whereas, a lot of guys that I know that I talk to, they work out of either, a small office space without a yard or maybe out of their home if they're just starting out. And so they don't have anywhere to accept a large quantity of materials. And some wholesalers, some manufacturers still require that you have a physical location. They require that you have a storefront and a yard to set up an account. So some guys and gals out there just don't have that available. So I think these fence companies are coming from a good place in that they're trying to offer that service or that quality material to local fencers in their area that just don't have it available to them for one reason or another.
And Joe, I'm going to go back to a comment I made just earlier. The word finally came to me, and that's a cooperative, a co-op. Okay.
Yeah.
Where, Bo may be a small company Tony may be a small company, but if we get Tony, Joe, and Bo together, we can leverage our purchase power with a local, supplier to hopefully help them help us. And that, in my opinion, that cooperative thought process is very important, especially with a startup.
Sure, absolutely. Tony, I couldn't agree more. So, Bo, I think that pretty accurately answers the question. But if you've got any more questions, if any of you guys have more questions, drop them in the comments below. We're going to move on with the interview, but we'll wrap back around to him here in a little bit. So, Tony, let's talk about the fence contractor. And the fence contractor, that word can be pretty broad. Typically what we see, I'll call it the life cycle of a fence company, is a guy's a great craftsman. He's great at building fence. He's worked his way up to crew lead. He runs a crew of guys. He builds fence, and he says, hey, look at all of this money that this company's bringing in to build this fence. I'm doing the majority of the work, and I'm not seeing the majority of the money. I'm going to start building this fence for myself. And he or she, they go off on their own. And then they realize that there is a large world of fencing out there outside of the installation side. I think, and we talked about this a little bit before again, in that, I think there's some fence companies that are run by incredible craftsmen. Mm-hmm. These guys and gals build great fence, but they weren't prepared for the business side. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that goes in behind the scenes, to keeping a fence company running, long term, consistently. Yes. It's not only the installation, there's also the sales portion of it. There's also the production scheduling, there's the material ordering, that sort of thing. And I think they get overwhelmed. Yep. It seems like the life cycle is about 2 to 3 years. And I say it like this. I say, in my experience, what it is it takes about 2 or 3 years to run through whatever savings and whatever line of credit is out there. And Mama Bear or Papa Bear, whenever they come home at the end of every day, the significant other's upset because there's never enough money to buy Christmas or groceries, and the bills pile up, and bills collectors won't stop calling. So at some point, it's enough is enough. And then you need to go get a real job. And unfortunately at that point, Tony, my experience is that person is so disenfranchised with the fencing industry, they go elsewhere. Yeah. They go into a different line of work, which is unfortunate because that person started out as an incredible craftsman. Mm-hmm. So what I'd like to talk about is maybe some missteps that I've stumbled along the way, maybe some that you've stumbled along, that hopefully we can help new or potential, future fence companies avoid making. So Tony, let me ask you, you're the guest here. What do you think the top 3 things are that a fence company someone should consider before even starting a fence company?
Well, as we all know in this industry, we're kind of at a low entry level, to this professional industry. Okay. I mean, again, y'all know I'm from Mississippi. We call them trunk slammers. You can buy a wheelbarrow from Home Depot and put them in the back of a Cadillac and throw your post hole diggers out the window, and I'm a fence contractor. Well, that may be true in a lot of situations, but again, it's a low entry level for folks to get involved. But what I see, and I have seen for my whole career, is individuals that are good craftsmen, good tradesmen, that decide that they want to go into business for themselves. And then within 2 years, they're in trouble with, their finances, their banks breathing down their neck. They're in trouble with the IRS because they didn't know about those tax pieces and all those things that go involved with running a business. It's a whole lot different than, going to install a fence than it is to how to run that business. And I've said this for years and years. You have to run the business. Don't let the business run you. And so many people fall into that piece of the puzzle where, they're putting out the hottest fire, or they're trying to take care of this and not taking care of that. But some of the things that I feel is most important for all fence contractors to understand is, there's some major business pieces that you need to follow. And the American Fence Association developed what we call Fence Contractor Business School. Some of you have actually sat through it, but this is our business training book, and it's very, very thick. And it talks about all the aspects of what you need to understand about. I follow these fence professional pages all the time, and always, how do I market? How do I sell? How do I estimate? What do I do for insurance and what's the legal requirements? All of those pieces are outlined in this Fence Contractor Business School. And from time to time, you're going to get a tremendous amount of input. Again, our fence industry is not very opinionated to tell you that, you're doing it the wrong way. You need to try it this way. But in reality, you've got to find your own niche. You've got to find your own way, but understanding that the business aspect is the most important piece of keeping your doors open long term. End of story. Okay. And you've got to have fun doing it. Okay. If you're getting up every morning, you're not enjoying what you're doing, you might want to go change professions because you're not going to be here long term. Or if you do, it's probably going to kill you. But, some of the pieces that I think is most important, Joe, is the accounting and the business structure. We got to know our accounting. We got to know our money's coming in, our money's going out, what's happening there. We got to know our safety management and OSHA compliance, especially if you're going to do commercial. That in itself will get so many people in trouble because they don't know what these requirements are. But when it comes to estimating, I see these Facebook pages all the time. Well, I'm buying it for this and I'm putting this much on it and I'm selling it for that. What are you selling it for? Well, first of all, guys, please don't do that on a social media page because you're crossing some antitrust guidelines that's going to get you in trouble sooner or later. Okay. Yep. You've got to figure out your costs. You've got to figure out your overhead. You've got to figure out what money you've got to make to be successful and quit asking others what they're selling it for because they're in a whole different market. They're going to have a whole different level of overhead. And in my opinion, that's some of the biggest mistakes that our young business professionals make is trying to go out and mimic what others are doing when they're not ready to do that.
Yeah, I agree, Tony. On that point, even in the same market, the prices will vary contractor to contractor because, we have 3 or 4 large competitors here that are our size or larger, and they're all bidding fence at their rates. It costs them, each one of them, a different amount of money. It could be more, it could be less than us just to operate the business. Mm-hmm. And it seems like everyone has different pricing structures. So I might pay a little bit different than they pay for materials, depending on where I buy them and what quantities.
That's true.
So, but you're right. You see that question so often is, well, how much do you guys charge to build 6-foot privacy fence?
Yeah.
Well, there are 100 questions that go into that before we even talk about the legal ramifications of answering that question. Because if I answer that question, now both of us are in trouble.
That's true.
Because at that point, we've entered into a conversation and both sides are guilty. There's not one side that's guilty in that conversation. So absolutely.
Yep.
The way Bob Vila put it when I was a kid is if you're not a professional, hire a professional. And that's what we preach as contractors.
Yeah.
Right? That we are the fencing professionals.
Yeah.
But how many guys also try to do their own taxes? And they ask other people in the Facebook group or they ask people in the Facebook group, hey, what would you do in this contract? They ask the Facebook lawyers out there.
Yeah.
Legal advice. No, you've got to surround yourself with a team of professionals.
Yes.
And you're right. The accountant is absolutely important because if you can't read a profit and loss and balance sheet well, and I'll be honest, I am decently proficient at balance sheet and profit and loss, but I'm nowhere near as proficient as my accountant. And I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Because my accountant probably can't build a great fence.
That's true.
We each have our own niches.
This is true.
But I think you're right. I think putting a team around you is absolutely important. First step.
And Joe, I would like to plug for anybody that's interested that Fence Contractor Business School, as you and I talked before the presentation here, we're going to be doing a lot of training on the road this next year. But in the Dallas-Fort Worth market, I think it's April. Let me look at my calendar real quick. April 12th week, we're actually going to be hosting that Fence Contractor Business School here in the Dallas-Fort Worth market. So if anybody's interested, we haven't put it on the website or anything yet. But if you want to get your business basics, to be able to run an efficient company, please reach out to me and we'll keep you up to date on that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and it's probably a good segue into AFA, how AFA helps contractors with education and certification. There's a lot of guys out there that are great craftsmen, and they'll tell everyone about it. Believe me, I do. You should.
Yeah.
But but how do you know? Right? Because we've also met met the the installers that are the best thing since sliced bread at installing fence, and then come to find out after a few weeks of them working on your crew, they might not be.
Exactly.
They might have oversold themselves.
Yeah.
So let's talk about certifications for a minute.
Okay.
What certifications does the AFA offer for fencing contractors?
Okay, there's two distinct things that everybody needs to understand. The American Fence Association does not certify. Okay.
Okay.
The American Fence Association supports education through our schools. Okay. So AFA, with experts in the industry, we put together the curriculum, we develop the school, we do the training, and then an organization called Accreditation Certification Institute, better known as ACI, they are the third-party entity that basically sets you in front of an exam, and at the end of that exam, you can become certified if you pass a certain threshold. Okay. Now, we could self-certify, but that's really not, self-certifying yourself is like saying I'm the best one, right? So now if you put this product, this curriculum in front of a certifying body such as ACI, and they evaluate, wow, you guys have really done a good job in the curriculum. You've done a good job in the training. And now we're going to build you a test for that and be able to test these individuals on their knowledge or product knowledge. Then that way they can get a check in the box to become a certified whatever. And of course, our Fence Contractor Business School, you can set through ACI for what we call certified fence contractor. You'll have to know your trades, which is your core and your disciplines, and you will have to know the business aspect of it. That testing exam is actually patterned after the California business licensing exam, so it's pretty stringent. So certified fence contractor. And then certified fence professional, which has been around a long time, which now is certified through ACI, that's basically you understanding what the ASTM, the Gate Bible, as I call it, or the Fence Bible, as I call it, about knowing what the ASTM standards are and how to properly make them a part of your residential or commercial fence. And then we have the Certified Gate Automation Design School, which you can become a certified gate automation designer. We have the Certified Gate Automation Technician School, which you can become certified in. And we're going to release later this year, which I think is going to be one of our most popular ones, is a certified operations manager school. It'll be a 3 to 5 day school, and then you will be able to set for a certification at the end of that. That curriculum was being developed prior to pandemic. We're back on task middle of December, and we're going to roll that out right after Fence Tech and start delivering that on the road this next year. So I think that's going to be a huge thing too. But what we see from consumers, architects, and engineers is they're all begging for certifications. Okay. I tell the story that, specifiers will put in there all the right products, chain link, wood, whatever it is. But then there's a caveat there that says you must be in business for 2 years or have done a project similar to this in your career. Well, I could be the worst contractor in the county and be in business for 2 years. So what we're seeing architects and specifiers asking for, Joe, is give me a certification that I can start putting in here. We're seeing the CAGOI, which you will soon start seeing the CGAD, the CGAT, and you're also going to see the certified fence contractor request being in most of your bid projects here in the future. Now, that's a long road to hoe for us as an organization, but that's what we're working on. That's what we're here for, is to make sure that the consumer's protected and the right people are doing the work with the right products. And that's our goal, is protection.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tony, I commend you guys for taking on such a monumental task. I mean, it has to be such a huge undertaking, but I think you guys have the goal in mind of, leaving a better industry behind.
Exactly.
Right. Leaving an industry that is now viewed as a professional industry. I think we all go through this in that, there's a thought that the fencing industry as a whole isn't a profession, it's like a glorified handyman to some people, which is unfortunate because these are guys that have dedicated their whole lives to learning to be the best craftsman they can be at this trade, and so I think what you guys are doing, obviously it's multifaceted, but I think it's great for the fencing contractor to be able to say, No, I'm a professional. I hold professional designations that show to you, the customer, that I have entered into this much, ongoing education. I have exhibited, my competence at all, whatever the designation is at these required, designations. I've done the work and I have the knowledge to do this as a profession, not just as someone that happens to do it.
Absolutely. One of the biggest gotchas that I see or I hear from time to time is, that we're not recognized as professions, or professionals. And it just really aggravates me in the fact, and I asked this question to whoever asked me that, what's the difference between us being a professional and a tradesman in the fencing industry than the electricians or the plumbers? The plumber can't put my fence up. You don't want me out there doing the plumbing. So, these certifications will slowly but surely gain more, clout, more, credibility as we move forward. And it's all about the numbers. So, anybody that's interested in getting those certifications, we certainly would love to have that conversation. But there's no reason why we can't be looked upon as a professional tradesman and a professional industry like others, because those other two have licensing in order to be in business.
Right.
And I see that possibly happening in the next 10 years for our industry. Personally, I can. Okay. Yeah. And I think everybody else can too, if the right lobbying, the right licensing, the right protocols, and all those things that goes into that called advocacy and governmental affairs, committees and discussions that occur, we'll get there. And that's what our goal is.
Yeah. And by the AFA kind of taking the first step in that, by creating the professional designations, you guys are kind of setting, you're setting the bar as to what the professional designation should be. When I talk to plumbers and electricians, sometimes, their licensing boards, they don't necessarily agree with some, this way or that way, but there was no one that took that first step to set that standard, right? That a certified fence professional should be able to do these things. Yes. And so then someone just came up with it.
Yeah.
Right. So if it's not done, if you don't do it, someone will do it for you. Sort of thing. So I think the AFA has taken a great first step in that, saying, who knows the fencing industry better than us, than ourselves. And so, but I think you're right. I think licensing, I think it's coming. I think it will come. And unfortunately, it's because you see, and maybe not this, not the only reason, but so this contract or this craftsman that started a business and was in business 2 or 3 years and then realized that, they're not a great business person and then leaves. Unfortunately, sometimes they don't just leave. Unfortunately, sometimes, and we had this in our local market a little while back, is, they'll start taking on more and more deposits because they're behind on bills. And so, but then all of a sudden they have more work than they can put in. And so then they just collect deposits for a while and then disappear.
Yeah.
They just up and move and they're gone and no one's ever heard from them. But you have 20, 30, 40 customers that have each put down deposits of $4,000 or $5,000 who are just out of luck, unless they can find this person and try to bring them back, through the court system, they're just gone. And I think that's happening enough. I think that's going to be one of, the straws that breaks the camel's back that leads to licensing and regulation.
I'll tell you another piece that most people don't think about, Joe, is the fact that as a homeowner, okay, you probably have a fence in your backyard, okay? If it wasn't installed properly by the standards and you got a tornado or high winds or some type of weather came through and blew this fence down, and then your insurance inspector comes out there and says, well, that post is only 12 inches in the ground. I know the standard says 30-inch deep, 10-inch diameter, then I'm not going to insure this. So we're seeing more and more insurance groups starting to get on the bandwagon, so to speak, to say, hey, how can we protect our coverage, okay, and get rid of some of these, unethical practices that's going on. So I think with that momentum, we're going to see a good change as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. And guys, for those of you watching, I don't view licensing and regulation as a negative. There's some folks out there that do. There's some folks out there that view it as a very negative thing. And I think it's accomplishing or is trying to accomplish a similar, benefit that the AFA is already trying to undertake. is that it's bringing everyone up to a standard playing field.
Correct.
And it's requiring education. It's requiring, proficiency exams and that sort of thing. I don't view it as a negative, but I think everyone will be 2, 3, 4 steps ahead when that day comes if they are already accredited through or, by using the AFA's education.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about a little bit of the differences between certified fence professional and certified fence contractor. Those two things sound similar, but they're pretty different.
Again, certified fence professional is understanding what's in this ASTM standards book. Okay, y'all can tell I'm sitting at my desk. Okay, fence materials and products. The 14th edition is coming out in January, February of next year. We've already got a big supply ordered, so y'all reach out to us and we'll get this taken care of you. But what certified fence professional tells the industry is that I know what these standards are, and I'll follow them, and I'm going to do what's required to make sure that the products are installed properly through these standards. That's what certified fence professional is. A lot of commercial contractors use this designation as a way to show architects, engineers, and others that we know that there's our standards and ASTM, requirements out there, and we know them. Certified fence professional, I would say, kind of takes that whole big picture. Okay, whether you do residential or commercial or a little bit of both, you have to know the trades, the course, how to dig a hole, how to mix cement, how to lay out a job, how to do all these basics, including all 5 disciplines. I need to know wood, chain link, iron. And then you got to pass the test for the business piece. So the certified fence contractor is basically what you will probably see as a designation in architects and engineers specifications that says, here's the right product. You got to be a certified fence contractor to go do this job. That's what ultimately is going to be seen in the future. If we have if we obtain that goal that we hope to obtain. So that's the differences right there.
Would you say, Tony, would it be fair to say the certified fence professional would be, something similar to like a 4-year degree, and the certified fence contractor would be more like a master's degree?
Absolutely.
Kind of an elevated degree.
I use the cores and the disciplines as terms. I say the cores is K through 12. We learn all those basics all those years. And then when we go to college, okay, we got to put our head down. Now we got to take all those cores that we learned K through 12. Now we got to go build that chain link. We got to go build that wood. We got to go build that. We got to take what we understood, how to dig a hole, how to mix cement, and now we got to go put the bands on and do the stretching and all the things that goes into it. And you're right. It's all about the elevations to the next level. Sure.
Well, very good. Well, Tony, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about the fencing contractors. Is there anything I'm missing here as far as AFA's role in helping fencing contractors? We talked a little bit about, the education you guys are providing, and then a little bit about the certification. Am I missing anything here?
Well, you and I talked just briefly about the on-the-road training this next year, 2021. We're really going to put a lot of emphasis on that because we had to cancel Afa University this year due to COVID. Yeah. So be looking for that. Visit our website. We're going to be bringing this throughout the country throughout 2021. And in my opinion, if you've got a good, employee that's really a new guy, greenhorn as I used to call them, that's really showing up to work every day, got a license, can pass a drug test. Those are the first 3 criteria these days. If he wants to learn, then we're going to give you the opportunity to fast track this guy instead of taking so long to get him to understand efficiencies and how to do's. The schools will help you get to that point, and I think that's very important.
Well, yeah, Tony, that's absolutely true. I'm actually going to bring some of my more seasoned guys also, only because there's always more than one way to perform a task.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And just because this is the way we do it doesn't mean that's the most efficient way to do it. I'm planning on bringing even my seasoned guys. Just if nothing else, they can have that same networking opportunity with other fencing installers, but then also maybe learn a trick or two that saves a little bit of effort here or there that makes a big difference at the end of the year.
Oh, absolutely. And then that goes back to that networking piece. They're going to teach somebody just, sitting, at a table eating lunch or whatever, but they're going to learn from somebody another technique that they had never thought about. I learn something every year at Afa University. Here I am almost 60 years old, and I still get out there and put my hands on it as much as I can. But I learn something every year. And when we just finally say, I learned it all, I know it all, that's when we need to just go to the house and stay there.
Well, that's the thing. The day you stop learning is the day you start falling behind.
Amen.
Yep. We need to constantly be striving for more education, for more and higher education.
Yep.
Well, Tony, let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about Fence Tech. I saw you had a video up. Was it last week? I think that you guys made the trip out to Nashville.
Yes. Of course, this is one of our highest and top priorities right now. It's just meeting with the Music City Center. As most people know, we'll be in Nashville February 24, 25, 26. Actually, the 23rd, 24, 25, and 26. We'll have 2 days of education, which will be business and technician and installation training, along with a couple of schools. And then, of course, the trade show will start on the 24th afternoon, be the 25th and 26th. What most people don't understand is, it's not just a trade show. And Joe, what you and I talked about before this presentation is the fact that the education piece is probably one of the biggest pieces of it for business owners to come and wrap their heads around, and understand that we're trying to provide you some additional, sessions on, proper efficiencies, and marketing and all the pieces that we need to better understand. We are meeting with the convention center and the bureau on a weekly basis and have been for months. And they're telling us what the protocols are. You will be seeing some videos from me over the next couple of weeks, keeping everyone up to date on what we're seeing and what we're understanding. As it is right now, what we know today is that if we host a Fence Tech, when you walk through the door, you're going to be required to have your temperature checked, and you will be required to wear a mask. Now, that's a mandate by the convention center and the city officials, and there's no ins, ands, or buts. You're going to have to do it if you want to be there, okay? Yeah. If you don't pass the temperature check or you're not willing to wear a mask, you're going to have to leave, okay? That's just the way it is. Broadway, which I've always called Honky Tonk Row, where everybody congregates at night. Right now, there is a mandate for mask wearing up and down Broadway because that's where most people are, right? Sure. But as soon as you turn off Broadway and you walk down, the side streets, you can take your mask off as long as you don't congregate with, more than 3 or 4 people.
Right.
So just be prepared to watch these videos. We're going to be education, you to death, for lack of better terms, because we want what to expect. Yeah. Our booth draw was postponed 4 months, but we still have over 200 exhibitors that have committed to be there. Our registration launch for attendees a couple of weeks ago. We've already got several hundred people registered. The hotel numbers are looking great. So, most of our essential workers, they were out there working anyway, with or without a pandemic. And most of those individuals are hoping to be there at Fence Tech as long as the city doesn't shut down. And I told somebody the other day, as long as a fence contractor doesn't put a fence around Nashville, we're going to be there. And we might be able to open that gate if we figure it out.
But I bet somebody's got some tools for that.
Exactly. So that's the biggest piece, is understanding what to expect and having an understanding that it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to have to meet the protocols for, sanitizing stations up and down the aisles, 6 foot spacing in all the education rooms. Those type of things are just going to have to be something that we're going to have to get used to if we're going to host this event. Now, if this thing cancels, we're going to look at the possibility of moving it later in the year. We'll look at other opportunities. I mean, we've got 3 contingencies in place all the way down to full cancellation. And that's what the board of directors has been working on, along with myself and staff, for the last several months, of knowing where all these financial burdens may be. But right now, I tell everybody, we're going to be there with bells on, and we're going to try to have the most successful event that we can, as long as this pandemic allows us to be there and the city doesn't shut us down.
Sure. And absolutely. And Tony, one takeaway I have too from this is it's an ever-changing situation.
It is.
Right. It's not like the regulations as of today will be the regulations moving forward.
It's true.
It kind of varies day by day, it seems like.
It's true. That is true.
Now, you'd mentioned early on in that. So one thing I didn't comprehend, I guess, at first about Fence Tech was the educational component of it. I'd always kind of viewed it as a trade show because I never went. My dad used to go, but I got left at the office to build in, I always thought it was a trade show, that you went to met vendors and other contractors, and that's all it was. And really, I view it more as an educational opportunity that happens to have a show floor. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely. I don't think that a lot of our industry professionals fully understand what these education sessions can do for their operation. And if they will just sign up and come in a little bit early, they're going to get more bang out of those education sessions than they will the trade show floor. You'll have the business owners that are setting through certain, tracks. You'll have the schools going on, such as the designer school, the sales training school. For those that want to become certified, we'll be doing the testing events as well. But we'll also have something for the installers, the technicians, gate operator training, and those type things that a lot of them are just phenomenal. And these are peers from our industry that are primarily teaching these classes. So you're learning from somebody that's been there and has done it. Okay. It may be, how to better understand a P&L statement,
Sure.
How to evaluate your estimating and your bidding, which that's one of the biggest questions we get in our industry.
Yeah.
How do I go to market? How do I get commercial work? How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I build a gate? Residential and commercial gate. That was a session I did in Salt Lake City this last year, and it was unbelievable, the attendance. And then since that time, people were just begging for this little gate Bible to say, these are your cuts. This is how you do it. So it's an education for sure. And I think it's very, very important, Joe, for attendance this year, especially from a trade show perspective, for contractors to visit with the wholesalers to understand what is to be expected. Okay. This pandemic has caused a huge upset in our supply chain.
Yeah.
And we're already hearing from people in the trucking industry that things are going to slow down in November, maybe even some other standstill issues. What is that and how is that going to affect us? So we need to be positioned to understand what our wholesalers can do for us and communicate with those wholesalers, those manufacturers and distributors to where you can meet the expectations that your company is going to be placed under, in 2021. And what better place than face-to-face? You can do it over the phone. You can do it over social media. This
Sure.
virtual WebExing and Teams and all these other meetings that we've learned to have to come used to. It is part of our life now, but there's nothing better than a handshake and a face-to-face. That's just the way I grew up, and I guess I'll die that way too. But I do think that it's going to be a successful event. I do anticipate less attendance because there'll be people that have pre-existing conditions that just
Sure.
will not want to come. I understand. We understand. And we're going to try to meet every protocol we can to have a safe, event. That's our game.
Yeah, and Tony, I feel like I'm applauding you a lot in this, but I applaud you guys for making the tremendous effort to still host FinStech. There's a lot of, so we found out, here locally that most of our spring home shows have been canceled.
Yeah.
Already. And
Yeah.
they're saying, hey, looking at the future landscape, it just doesn't look possible. We're going to go ahead and postpone for the following year. So for 2022, I appreciate you guys putting in the massive amount of effort to try to make this possible.
Well, that's our goal. We're going to try. We're going to give it all we got. Our commitment to our exhibitors was that, if for some reason this thing is canceled, we will provide a full refund to exhibitors and attendees, and/or we will credit your account to New Orleans 2022. So, we want to be partners, with our exhibitors and our attendees. We want them to know that we care enough that we're not just going to take your money and run. We want you to know that we're going to stand by you and with you and support you. And as long as everybody understands what the protocols are, we'll have a great event. It'll be less people. I mean, let's face the fact, there'll be, where an exhibitor might bring 15 people. They may only bring 7 this year.
Sure.
Sure. That's just to be expected. But those that show will have a good event. And I'm sure that, as long as it's not completely canceled, we'll be in great shape. And we'll just kind of see how it goes.
Well, Tony, I'm certainly looking forward to it. So I'll be there for the channel. We'll be doing some interviews with some folks. So in talking about that, talking about the channel being at FinStech, who are some people I should talk to? I mean, who's going to be there better than anybody. Who are some folks that I should talk to? Who are some folks that some the people on the channel can expect to see there?
I think you and I both know, and anybody that's on the presentation today knows that our biggest challenge is supply chain for next year.
Yeah.
And I honestly believe that you would do your viewers a good thing by talking to your wholesale distributors, both fence, gate, and automation. They're going to have a better handle on what next year looks like than anyone else because they're manufacturing and they're supplying and they know what their timelines are. They've already ordered 6 months ago for delivery for next year.
Sure.
So, I'm not going to call out the names, but I'm just going to say every fence wholesaler and every gate automation, manufacturer that's out there, you need to have a good understanding with and interview with because that's going to educate your viewers and our industry professionals on what to expect. What I'm hearing is we're not going to see a level inventory until the middle to late next year. So we're going to have this challenge, January all the way through the end of July, maybe even into August, or later. So the preparation for all of that is what is most important, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. So we're going to see some wholesalers there and manufacturers. There's also going to be usually some equipment reps there.
Oh, yeah.
Usually there's some pretty neat equipment hanging out there. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And if nothing else, just get to see it, all this neat equipment.
And hey, we're going to do our fence Olympics again. So if any of y'all want to challenge me on how to run a nail gun, I'll be willing to step up to my game.
That'd be great.
But we're going to have some cornhole contests and some fence Olympics, and it'll be a lot of fun. So we hope to see everybody there.
Very good. Very good. Well, guys, I'm going to Fence Tech. I've already made plans to be there, made the reservations and all that. You guys should, if you're able to, and if you're comfortable with it, you guys should absolutely, make plans to attend Fence Tech. I'll probably host a meetup on one of the evenings, depending on the stipulations and make sure, what the rules and regulations are. But if you're out there, I'd certainly like to see you. But well, Tony, let's do this. So we've got one more. We're going a little bit long here, and I apologize. Do you have a firm time you need to be off?
I'm here for you.
Okay, Tony, I appreciate that a lot. So, guys, originally I told Tony, I said, yeah, it'll probably be 45 minutes, might be an hour. Here we are, an hour 17 into it, and I still have a whole nother section I'd like to talk about. Let's do this. Let's answer a few questions very briefly, and then move on. What we're going to talk about next is from the homeowner's perspective. So if you guys are out there watching that have questions more tuned to, you're a homeowner or do-it-yourself crowd, we'll bring your questions up next. I saw one here that was interesting, Tony. So it's from Mark Knudsen. He says, do you require business insurance for membership, both liability, workman's comp, and U.S. product liability insurance? I think Mark's asking from like the manufacturer standpoint.
Do you require business insurance for membership? No, we do not. A member, whoever they may be, can be a member as long as they're a business entity. Sure. We don't require financials, and we don't require proof of insurance, from any of our membership.
Sure. I think that's a good question. Very good. Thanks, Mark. Let's see. Bo had another tidbit here. We've spent years analyzing warranty calls, evaluating installations from other companies in order to be the best that we can be, or we can, and always looking to be better. Our industry deserves that recognition. Absolutely. Yeah, Bo, that's phenomenal. I think we can learn. I think we can learn from our own mistakes, and we can learn from others' mistakes. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's my whole thing in our company is a mistake isn't necessarily a negative event. A mistake, as long as you learn from it, it's an opportunity to learn. Absolutely. And also, guys, if a mistake on a homeowner's property, on a commercial property, wherever, is also an opportunity to show them how you make it right.
Exactly.
It's a great opportunity to say, here's our system for solving problems. And, and if you've set your system up correctly, it's above and beyond what the customer expected. So a lot of times, a mistake or a warranty call, whatever, actually ends up, if you handle it correctly, actually ends up being better for you than if the mistake hadn't happened at all.
This is true.
But Bo's doing a great job by actually taking time and looking into that. I think that's great. Rachel's excited for the on-the-road training Yeah, well, yeah, she's excited. It's coming. It's coming in. Oh, of course she is. She says, "Bring it on. Let's go."
That's right.
Someone up here, and this is my sentiment. So Tommy's looking for the operation management course. This is the first I heard about it, and I'm probably not listening closely enough, and I apologize, but that's the first I've heard about. I am incredibly excited to hear you say that because operations management is huge.
Joe, let me tell you a little bit of story. Tommy and I and his beautiful wife, Annette, got to meet last year at Afa University.
Okay.
They both sat through our fence contractor business school, and both of them became a certified fence contractor. And they were fairly new into the industry. And Tommy and I had a lot of time to talk. Annette and I have done a lot of follow-up phone calls over the last year, about how to approach a marketing, issue or what to do with this or what to do with that. But you're talking about two focused individuals that wanted to do it right from the beginning. And I just commend both Tommy and Annette for that because honestly, he's asking the right questions on these professional pages out here, and he's getting good input from others, and he continues wanting to grow. And I just appreciate, their attitude toward our industry because it's only going to make our industry a more professional, industry. And for Tommy to talk about the operations piece, because I tell everybody, when you start thinking about efficiency, everybody says, well, can I get more efficient with my sales? Yeah. Can I get more efficient with my operations? Well, yeah, for sure. But, a lot of people put the emphasis on the efficiencies on installation. That's where I'm going to make more money if I can just do it faster. And all of a sudden your productivity goes up, but your level of tradesmanship goes down.
Yep.
I personally believe that the operations is where more $100 bills are burnt, in our industry than anywhere else in our industry. And if we learn that operations and how to build those dominoes in order to be a good operation for when I get to the field, we can learn the efficiency piece out there at a later time. But that operations piece, I think, is going to go over well, once we launch that this next year. So excited about Tommy being excited about getting him plugged into that.
That's right. Right. Yeah, it's, I think you're right. If in the production side, you can only find so many efficiencies until you start lowering your level of craftsmanship.
Yeah.
But operations, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you see, you walk some fence lots, you walk through some companies and looking around, it's like, oh, you got several $100 bills laying around over there. And, there's a lot of inefficiencies there that I think guys almost turn a blind eye to, and gals, just because they're focused on production. But they really ought to be focused on the operations and the business because that's, you're saving dollars, but you're spending hundreds of dollars, out the door. So absolutely. And I think, it's worthwhile for, I think there might be that thought, well, I'm just it's me and three guys building fence. So when I get bigger, I'll figure out the operations.
Oh, no.
I think now's the best time to figure out your operations.
Yes.
Before you start trying to scale, because my experience has been, you never anticipate, you're never ready to scale. It happens.
It happens. That's right.
You see an opportunity and you take advantage of the opportunity. And if you haven't done the work up until that point, well, you're just figuring it out.
Yep.
And figuring it out is duct tape and shoestrings.
It goes back to what I said earlier. You're letting the business run you, and you're not running the business.
Yep.
You should have seen that growth. You should have seen that expected percentage of increase in sales, which has an increase in, payroll and inventory and all the other things. So again, run the business. Don't let it run you. That's what you just said.
I couldn't agree more. I absolutely couldn't. Let's see. We've got a few more. This one just came up. RA says, hey, trying to apply for AFA membership as a contractor, but I'm not seeing any info after I log into my account. I've called and left message. No one's called us back. Well, let's do this. So at the end of this broadcast, we're going to get some contact info for Tony, and it's probably just as simple as sending him an email. Hey, here's what's going on, and can I get some help? And if I know Tony, he will stop what he's doing and he will figure that out.
Yeah, and I do want to apologize. Our office has been limited staff, skeleton staff, with this COVID pandemic, and we have been a little slower to respond as normal. But my apologies to that. But yeah, we'll give you my email and my phone number toward the end. If you reach out to me, I promise you I'll get right in the middle of it. We'll figure out what's got to be taken care of for you. I promise.
Perfect. Yeah, and that's the thing, Tony, is everyone's still trying to figure out, how their business operates in, this changing landscape, because it does change.
Yeah.
It changes constantly. So, yeah, absolutely. Well, Tony, let's do this. I don't see any more new comments. So let's start talking about let's talk about AFA for the homeowners. So, the reason I think it's important to talk about AFA for the homeowners is, if I didn't know fencing, so say I'm talking about roofs. I know nothing about roofs. I know some roof companies, but I don't know roofs. And I get bids from 4 companies. How do I compare them? How do I know apples to apples? And say there's 2 that are in the same ballpark. They're not high, they're not low, they're kind of in that Goldilocks zone. How do I make the choice? Right? What questions do I ask, and how do I interview the contractors? We answered that question in a few videos ago, just what questions to ask a contractor. But what I think the homeowner really needs to understand is that AFA is really there for them too. Right.
This is true. Part of our mission statement, and if you don't mind me, I'm going to look up for a minute, but the American Fence Association benefits the fence industry professionals and consumers by promoting the highest levels of professionalism, ethics, and through the education and certification of its members. So the whole goal is to make sure that we educate, certify, and have good contractors that protects that consumer from getting that bad job. So having consumers in our mission statement has always been part of our wheelhouse and our goal. And, I get the calls several times a week, hey, Tony, this is Sam up in, Timbuktu, and I've got some quotes here. I'm a homeowner, and I don't know who to go with. What do you recommend? Well, the first question I ask him is, are any of these guys members of the American Fence Association?
Sure.
And, oh, yeah, I've got 2 of the 4 quotes here. And I said, well, if you don't mind sharing me who they are, and I'll be honest with them. There may be a guy that's focused on commercial that really is just, and another one may be focused on residential. And I'll steer them, in the direction, that they need to hear. But we do take a lot of pride in the fact that an AFA member, and we're going to, hey, look, I've been there, I've done it. We're going to mess up. We're going to drop the ball from time to time, even as an AFA member. But for the most part, being part of this organization, what comes with that is that if Joe's Fence Company went out and done a job today and your consumer was not happy and they picked up the phone and called and says, hey, I got this AFA member here and he did this, and this. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is pick up the phone and call Joe and say, hey, you got an unhappy, unhappy camper here.
Yeah.
What can we do to resolve this? And 99.9% of the time, it's just a misunderstanding or a miscommunication. And then it's resolved that quick. But they felt like they did something by calling the association when all they had to do was pick up the phone and call you, and it probably would have been resolved anyway.
Yeah, but you made yourself available for that phone call.
Exactly.
You make yourself available for that. One thing I think is important about, when you're looking at whether they are or are not involved with the AFA is, AFA isn't required. The membership's not required. So by being a member, they're taking that additional step towards, now whether it's just simply towards education, which is great, or they're also, going through the, fence installation school, or if we're talking about custom gates and gate operators,
right.
If they've gone through that education, just simply them being a member shows that they've taken that additional step to gain more knowledge and more education and participate in events that make them a better professional.
Absolutely. And that's really what you're gaining is just the stamp of approval, the gold standard, whatever you want to call it.
Sure. Is
that you've taken those extra steps. You've invested, in your company, in your employees, in your staff to be better, to be a more professional. The days of when your father owned the company and my father was in the telecommunications industry, they were part of organizations because they felt it was important to give back to the industry that has provided them their livelihood. Sure. And unfortunately, our newer generation just doesn't look at it like that. And sometimes, when I bring that up, I get that dumb look like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But truly, there's a lot of profession, and we got niche professions, niche organizations out there that benefit our industry. And I think that, we are a members-based organization. I've talked to people all the time. I got close friends that are not even members of AFA, and they'll say, well, Tony, why should I be a member? Well, I'll sell them my pitch. But, they say, well, I'm still making my money. I don't need you. And that's okay. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. But, when they call, I'll help them. I'll be there for them,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's important. I really do. So if we're talking about homeowners and why AFA is important to them, one, I mean, obviously it's the professional designations, right? So you would want to ask them, are you involved with the AFA? And if so, if the answer is yes, then the next question would be, well, how are you involved with the AFA?
Right.
Do you serve on, do you serve on a board, or are you do you carry the professional designations? Yeah. Serve on a committee. Try to get a better understanding for the contractor, because ultimately that's going to be a great insight into not only that particular person, but the company as a whole.
Absolutely.
That the company invests in its employees by, letting them, sending them to these committees, because, a lot of times it's time off work or it's time away from work.
And they're volunteering. They're volunteering their time. That's true.
Yeah. So it's a company that's investing in their people, because the company knows that, higher educated employees are going to be better for the consumer, that, just having this, designation is better for the consumer also. So I think it's important for the consumers to ask their contractor, not only are you involved with the AFA, but how are you involved?
Yeah. If a consumer calls me today, the first thing I ask them, I told you it was AFA, but I was really, really joking. I asked them, are they a licensed contractor? That's the first thing that I'm going to ask them. Are they licensed contractor? Are they insured? And can they protect, you and others if somebody was injured? And then that's when I ask them, hey, I'd really like for you to consider an AFA contractor to, do this work. Yeah. But we try to protect that consumer regardless if they're using an AFA member or not. Again, that's part of our mission goal is to protect that consumer and know that they're getting the right product and the right installer, out there on the job.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think those are great first questions, and with the insurance question, we actually just had a video out. I believe it was last week that covered insurance, and we've got a few more coming out. So when you ask the question about insurance, usually it's not enough to ask just, are they insured? Because are they insured could mean, is their vehicle insured? They got car insurance. So specifically the insurance to ask for would be, workman's compensation insurance.
Yep.
From a homeowner, that's the one that I would be most concerned about, simply because it covers the homeowner in the event that one of the employees has a work-related accident on their property.
Yes.
Liability insurance is also
very good point. Sure is.
Yeah. So asking what type of insurance. Any company that has commercial insurance can provide a certificate of insurance. That way, it's something from the insurance company saying, yes, they do carry insurance, and here's what they carry.
That's true.
Yeah, licensed insurance. I like for folks to ask for referrals or recommendations. My thing is 2 recent and 2 that are within a year and 2 that are more than a year, preferably more than 2 years old.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
That way, fences can look great in the beginning and then start to show their age after 1 or 2 years. And not necessarily the 2-year recommendation is about showing its age, but also within 2 years, you've probably had a warranty call or 2 come up. Typically it's gates. Your gates need adjusted. So if you're getting a referral from someone that they did the fence 2 years ago, and this person's still willing to give them a good recommendation, that means the company also has good follow through.
Exactly. And they stood behind their work.
That's right.
That's true. That's true.
Well, Tony, I think that covers it from the homeowner's perspective. AFA, asking for that AFA designation is incredibly important, and it should be one of the top 5 questions that gets asked, simply because then it gives you better insight into the contractor. Would you agree with that?
Even if I wasn't an AFA executive director, I'd still be looking at that.
Sure.
But you think about, whatever type of purchase you're doing, whatever it is, you're looking for that reputable organization to steer you in the right direction for whatever you're doing. So we just fit into that same mold, that's for sure.
That's right. Well, Tony, let's answer a few more questions real quick, and then we'll wrap this up.
That sounds good.
So let's see. So Tessa says, my next step is taking advantage of the training that the AFA offers. Since simply becoming an AFA member, I have learned so much. It has really changed my perspective as a fence professional, delivering a professional product and experience. I think, and Tony, you know more than I would, but I think this is probably the natural progression is a contractor just simply joins the AFA, kind of puts her toes in the water, sees what it's about. And then once they really see what AFA is and understand it, then they dive headfirst into the education.
I'll tell you, Tessa and I have had several conversations. So she's a candidate for a testimonial for sure.
Okay.
Where, someone in their local neighborhood had gotten themselves in a bind with a contractor. She shows up to try to help.
Yep.
And I was fortunate enough to be able to provide some guidance.
Okay.
And those type things. And, over the last year, we've had a couple of phone calls, talking about different challenges that her organization has had.
Sure.
And to your point, she's grown through AFA because we've been there to support, but we've learned a lot from her that helps us go educate somebody else. So it's a win-win situation.
It's a two-way street. Absolutely. Yep. Well, Tessa, thank you for being willing to step up and help in that situation. I think that's important. We do, as a company, we try to make it a priority, when we see something like that come up, that we try to step in, for a few things. I mean, the consumer's usually in a spot that they didn't mean to be in, right? They were taken advantage of. And in all honesty, it makes the industry as a whole look bad.
It does.
Right. So and this isn't a pat on the back, but more of a explanation. So there's a company in town that had taken a lot of deposits, not performed the work. And unfortunately, one of the people that were taking deposits from, she was in a bad personal situation, right? She had just become bound to a wheelchair through an accident and all that. So she couldn't let her dogs out. So all she wanted was a fence to where when she opened her back door, her dogs could run, but she couldn't go get them back in, right? So she couldn't chase after them. She needed a fence. So the contractor had taken a deposit back in like March or April and still hadn't returned calls, hadn't done the work. And unfortunately for the contractor, she went to the news station, and the news station picked it up and ran with it. Fortunately for us, or for the client really, is that I went to high school with the lady that was handling this news story. So she had reached out to me personally. She said, "Hey, I know who you are. I know what you do. Is there any way that you could try to step in and help?" And of course we did, because as an industry, it's important to us to avoid these situations.
Yeah.
Am I in charge of this guy's business? No, obviously not. But it makes our industry, or especially locally, it gives us a black eye when something like that happens.
It does.
So I was fortunate that we were in the position to be able to help. But I would encourage more fencing contractors to at least be willing to have that conversation on, listen, I understand you're taken advantage of, and I understand it's not a situation that you wanted to be in. How can we help?
Yes.
And a lot of times, how can we help isn't, can we do your fence for free?
Right.
A lot of times that's not the question. A lot of guys I talk to, not a lot of guys, but some of the guys I talk to, almost just assume that that's the question.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's not.
Mm-hmm.
In this particular situation, she was willing to modify the layout. She was willing, because she told me, my goal is simply keep these dogs in.
Yeah.
So I would encourage more fencing contractors to try to be there for their community, because ultimately it pays dividends too. Like, it fulfills me personally. I enjoy being able to help, but also there's a subsequent news story that went along with that first one showing the resolution to this problem.
Exactly.
And it happened to include, a video of my guys installing the fence.
Yep.
So from an ROI perspective, okay, it works too. But I think first and foremost, we need to be in a position to be of service.
Give back.
But Yep. But guys, that's it for me. We've gone an hour and a half instead of the 45 minutes to an hour that I told Tony. But I think we've answered almost all the questions that we've seen on here. My whiteboard, all the questions are pretty much answered on there. Tony, in closing, have I missed anything? Is there anything? This is kind of your opportunity to talk about something I might have missed.
I think we hit all the hot topics. Joe, I appreciate you and other, industry professionals getting these platforms out, in front of our profession and even, consumers, and the opportunity to educate them on who the American Fence Association is and what we hopefully will be achieving in the future. We collectively can do this. Again, we've got some high goals, some high tasks, some high achievements on our roll call, but if we don't do it, who is? And then that's kind of where I position myself as executive director. I tell so many people, I'm just Tony. I'm not an executive director. I'm a fence guy, just like most people that's on this forum today. And we've got an open door policy here. Whether you're a member or a non-member, do not hesitate reaching out to me. Y'all watch my videos. And I share my cell number. I'm going to do it again right now.
You bet.
If you need me, you call me on cell number 972-533-3658. Or if you'd like to send me an email at any time, it's Tony, Tony, at AmericanFenceAssociation.com. I know that's a mouthful, American Fence Association, but you can type it out. And please don't hesitate. And typically I'll respond to you pretty quickly unless I'm in a meeting or on a conference call. And my goal at the end of every day is if I've got 150 emails in my inbox, I'm going to do every one of them before I go home that night. That's a promise. That's just always the way I work. If you place a phone call to me and I don't answer, if you leave a message, I will call you back. Tommy and Tessa can probably attest to that. But Joe, I again appreciate the opportunity. We're in all this together. We're going to get through this pandemic. We're going to get through this era of time, and we're going to look back on it and say that we became stronger as an industry and a more professional industry through this whole process of what we're having to deal with. So I appreciate the opportunity being with y'all today. Thank you.
Well, yeah, Tony, we appreciate you. I mean, you've given quite a bit of time and very graciously. And what's funny, talking about phone call, the first time you and I interacted, I had called you, and you were obviously a man of 100 different tasks. So, but before I could even start leaving a voicemail, my phone bings with a text, and you had said, "Hey, wrapping something up real quick. I'll call you right back." Like, I didn't even get a chance to leave this guy a voicemail. He's texting me back immediately.
That box.
That's right. So Tony, I appreciate you. I appreciate all your time. I look forward to meeting you in person there at Fence Tech.
Absolutely.
I encourage, if anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to use Tony as a resource. He's one of these guys that will absolutely help you however he can.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, for now, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors.
Amen. Y'all have a great one.
Thank you, Tony.